page 149, Rayot Min Rishonim. We last looked at the sources in Chazal, Talmudic era sources, that show that the third redemption is permanent and it isn't interrupted afterwards. These ideas are developed also in the Rishonim and the Acharonim, the early and later rabbinic authorities. And this week we are going to look at how those people, those various Rabbanim, looked at this at the time. In connection to the pasuk in Yirmiyahu, Perek Zayin, pasuk Dalet, source 1, Al tivtechu lechem al divrei sheker lemor, do not trust the false word saying, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, Hema, sanctuary of God, sanctuary of God, sanctuary of God, or palace of God, they are, 3 times. The Aruch is a very interesting sefer. You have to take a step back for a minute. It is really it's called a dictionary of the Talmud, but it's not only a dictionary. He defines terms, not only words, but how they're used. He gives halacha. It's a combination of a dictionary and encyclopedia. Yes, you can look up a word and find out what it means, but you can also get pshat in the Gemara or in the Midrash, or sometimes in the Psukim, wound in as well. So he was very early, long before Rashi, maybe 100, 150 years before Rashi, the end of the period of the Gaonim, although most people consider him an early Rishon. So he wrote, when he's defining the word Heichal, based upon the Gemara in Nazir that we will look at Tosos on that in a minute. Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem Hema, palace or sanctuary, temple of God, 3 times, they are. Say Mikdash Rishon, Mikdash Sheni, Mikdash Shlishi. This is referring, he says, the first, second, third temples. Shema Mina, you hear from this. Trei Charuv, the first 2 are destroyed. Ushlishi Yamod Ad Olam, and the third will stand forever. So commenting on the same Gemara, Tosfos Nazir, Tav Lamed Gimel, Amud Beis, Dvar Hamatchil, Amar Rav Yosef, explains as follows. Ve'apasuk hu siman l'davar shem shlosha heichal, and the pasuk is a sign that there are 3 temples. Ve'ashnayim atidim licharev, and when Yirmiyahu was prophesizing, 2 in the future would be destroyed, meaning he was still, when he said this prophecy, the first temple had not yet been destroyed. Yirmiyahu lived to see the destruction of the first temple, but this prophecy was before that point in time. Ve'ashlishi, in the third temple, Kisei Yom HaGadol V'Hanara, it is the throne of the great and awesome day. Lo Yamush L'Netzach, it will not be turned away for eternity, meaning it will be in existence forever. So Tosfos understands the Gemara in the exact same way as we said, and you can ask a question on both Tosfos and the Baal HaAruch as to why it's Heichal. Why is this the temple itself? It's rare for us to refer to the temple as Heichal. It does happen, but it's not the normal way that we refer to the temple. And why is the temple the sign of the entire process of redemption itself? Maybe only after the temple is built can we be sure that it will not be destroyed. But before that point in time, it's possible that the process of redemption would be interrupted. So one has to note that the temple doesn't stand by itself. The temple is a part of the construction of Jerusalem. It is part of the long process of redemption. And it is true that it is the pinnacle, the ultimate point, the apex of the process of Binyan Yerushalayim, of Kibbutz Galiyot, the building of Jerusalem, the ingathering of exiles, and so on. But it is not separate from it. It is not a separate entity. And this we can understand from the bracha that Chazal said of Havinenu. There is a thing when you do not have time, for whatever reason, to daven a complete Shemona Esrei, you say the first three brachot, and the last three brachot, you say Havinenu which includes all of the middle brachot of the Amidah. And it says as follows: Havinenu Hashem Elokeinu ledat darkecha. Let us understand the Lord your God, your ways. V'yismechu tzadikim b'vinyan irecha u'b'tikun heichalecha. And the tzadikim will rejoice in the construction of your city and the fixing of your sanctuary. So we see from here, v'yismechu tzadikim, that from what it says, v'yismechu tzadikim, that the tzadikim are happy, joyous, whatever, that we see from that they're happy and rejoicing both in the construction of Yerushalayim and the building of the tabernacle. And so too, it's all part of one process. V'tikun heichalecha is a continuation of binyan irecha, of the building of your city. And in fact, we also see this in the bracha of binyan Yerushalayim in the normal Shemona Esrei. V'Yerushalayim yircha b'rachamim tashuv, and to Jerusalem, your city, with mercy you will return. V'tishkon b'socha kasher dibarta, and you will dwell within it as you spoke. And dwelling within the temple is, of course, an intrinsic part of the divine presence, is an intrinsic part of the building of Jerusalem, and the divine presence, the seat of the divine presence is, of course, the temple. The Bach, in his commentary on the Chaim Kuf Yud Ches Sif Beis, explains as follows: Shekol she'latenu birchat Yerushalayim hu b'binyan Yerushalayim ve'amilva levinyano v'zehu amarnu. All that we are asking for in the bracha of Jerusalem is the building of Yerushalayim, and what accompanies it and its building. And this is what we say: Yerushalayim yircha b'rachamim tashuv, and to Jerusalem in mercy you should return. Ulivnosa v'tishkon b'tocha kasher dibarta, to build it up, to dwell in it as you said. V'u shetishkon shechina b'beit hamikdash, and that means that the divine presence should dwell in the temple. Hu kolel binyan ha'ir, this includes the construction of the city. Uv'binyan habayis b'klalo, and the construction of the temple within it. V'im ken, and if so, kol zeh, all of this, dahainu, that is, binyan beis hamikdash u'binyan kisei David hu inyan bin Yerushalayim mamash. So the building of the temple and the reestablishment of the Davidic dynasty is part of the construction of Yerushalayim. Shari beis hamikdash v'kisei David hakol hu nivne b'toch Yerushalayim, because the temple and the house of David is built within Jerusalem. V'gam yesh lehem shayachut el Yerushalayim, and they are connected to Yerushalayim. Uval korchenu tzrichim anachnu lefarish ken, and we are forced to explain this bracha this way. Dim lo ken ma inyan kisei David lebinyan Yerushalayim, and if not, what is the relationship of the Davidic line to the construction of Jerusalem? So we see clearly, again, that the temple is connected to the building of Jerusalem. It cannot be separated from it. And therefore, when the third temple won't be destroyed, we can also say that the process that leads to the third temple cannot be destroyed. We continue with what the Rishonim said on Eicha. Tam avonecha bas Tzion, your sins have been finished, the daughter of Zion. Lo yosif lahaglota eich, I will not continue to exile you. Rashi explains, Lo yosif lahaglota eich, I will not continue to exile. Migalut Edom ulahalan od, from the exile of Edom and further. That is to say, the Galut Edom, the exile of Edom, of Europe, of Rome, will be the last exile. And that's what Rashi's saying, that after that there will be no more exiles. And concerning the pasuk in Hosea, Yechayenu miyomayim biyom hashlishi, you will live from days, and on the third day, Yakimenu b'nechiyeh lefanav, I will stand you up and live before you. So the Radak explains, Zeyamar marhu al atid, this is talking about the future. Umiyomayim, and what does it mean? In days, Mashal l'shtei galuyos. This is talking about the two exiles, Galus Mitzrayim and Galus Babel, the exile of Egypt and the exile of Babylon. B'yom hashlishi, and the third, Mashal Galus hazeh hashlishi. This is the parable of the third exile that we are found in. Sheyakimenu mimenu v'nechiyeh lefanav, that we will be stood up from it, we will live before him. Shelo niglei od leolam, that we will never be exiled from it again. And the Ramban explains in his commentary on Shir HaShirim, source 12, Ubrishayon Malchei Uhumot Uve Ezratan, and with the help, the permission of the kings of the world, Yelchu LaEretz Yisrael, they will go to the land of Israel. The Yechi HaMalchus Hahi Nimshach, and that dominion will continue. The Einu Posek Le'olam, and it will not be uprooted forever, it will not be interrupted. This principle that we can find in the words of the Chaim, from the end of the period of the Rishonim, is also found in the writings of Dan Yitzhak Abarbanel. The Abarbanel was the banker to Ferdinand and Isabella. He was actually given the opportunity to stay in Spain when all the rest of the Jews were exiled. He left, he went to Portugal, and there his youngest child was taken when the Jews were exiled from Portugal. And he writes about this whole process in his introduction to his commentary on Yirmiyahu. He wrote many, many svarim. I have no idea how many, but dozens. Not only his commentaries on all of Tanakh, but much else. And when you read his introduction, he gives you the dates that he began writing something and the day he finished writing something. And, sometimes Yeshayahu, for instance, I think took him 2 months, and Yirmiyahu 6 weeks, things like this. He was very, very prolific, very fast writer. So in his Sefer Mashmiya Yeshua Mevasar Tov, the third prophecy, paragraph 10, he writes as follows. Source 13. Lo yu ka'otam shenichnesu le'eretz Yisrael she'achrei shivtam aleha galu v'nischu mimenu. It is not like those people that entered Eretz Yisrael, and after they dwelt in it, they were exiled from it. Aval tiyeh simchat olam al rosham. It will be an eternal happiness on their heads. Pasuk from Yeshayahu. Rotzei lomar, this is to say, simchat olamim olamit v'nitzchit. That is an eternal happiness. Levi she'sason v'simcha yasigu, because happiness and rejoicing will catch up to them. Biyotam shama, when they are there. Mipnei shelo yavo od legalut, because they will never again come to exile. Nasu mihem yagon v'anecha, will flee from them all sighs and tribulations. V'shehivtiach od, not only this, but we are promised, she'achrei ota geula lo yeshuvu od legalut, that after that redemption, they will never again be returned to exile. V'zei kulo mimash yochiach she'anevua hazot b'chol chalkaha lo nitkayma b'bayit sheni. And we see that all of the parts of this prophecy were not fulfilled in the second temple. V'ashit b'she'atida hi lihitkayam b'biat mashichenu mehera yigalei. And they will be, the rest of the prophecies will be fulfilled in the future when our anointed one should reveal himself. Rabbi Avram Saba, that lived at the same time through the exile from Spain, writes this in his Sefer Tzror Hamor on Bereshit, his commentary on Bereshit, Perek Zayin, Pasuk Aleph. Lahorod lanu, this is to teach us, ki shlosha bate mikdash yu Yisrael, that there will be 3 temples to Israel. Keneged shloshat avot, each one for one of the avot. Ve'ashnayim atidim licharev, and the 2 of them in the future will be destroyed. Ve'ashlishi lo yeh charev, and the 3rd will not be destroyed. Eliyeh kayem le'olam, but it will exist forever. V'keneged habayit hashlishi, and opposite the 3rd temple, she'enu charev le'olam amar, that will never be destroyed, the pasuk says, Yaakov karu bayit, shenamar, Yaakov is called a house, as it says, Yeh bayit Elokim, and this will be God's house. That's a pasuk in Bereshit, Kavchet, Kavbeit, Shapirusha, that is to say, Yeh mikoach hehechrach bayit Elokim le'olam. This, it is giving him the power to have an eternal house for God. Shazeyu keneged habayit hashlishi asher laha amar, and this is compared to the 3rd temple about which it said, Gedol yeh kvod habayit hazeh ha'achron min harishon, that greater is the honor of this house, the last, over the first. V'atam hamamar, and there it says, Lo yenetesh v'lo yehares od le'olam. It will not be abandoned, it will not be destroyed again forever. It's interesting, by the way, also, if you think about the idea of each one of the temples being parallel to the Avot, that you see that Abraham and Yitzhak had children that did not follow their path. And perhaps that they're going off, they're having incomplete beds, as we say, as Rashi says about Yaakov, that he prostrated himself in Parshas Vayechi on the head of his bed when he saw that Yosef was also a tzaddik, that when he saw that his bed was complete, that all of his children were tzaddikim, that then he was happy, that then he was content. He could thank God at that point. So you see from here an interesting idea that there is a parallelism in the life of the Avos into what in the future will be coming from that. So if the Rabbi Avram Saba here says that we are getting 1 temple for each of the Avot, the Av, who his whole family remained loyal to the tradition of God, that his temple is the one that will stand forever. If I want to take one look back for a short minute, and when we're talking about the Binyan Yerushalayim, the construction of Jerusalem, that has to include within it the temple, and the construction of the temple is a automatic part of the building of Yerushalayim. When you, again, we've mentioned this several times, when you look into the Haggadah and you see that we taught in Dayenu and then Kamamalo Tavot immediately afterwards, and we discuss all the things from the very beginning of the end of the exile in Egypt, the whole process ends with the building of the temple. It's an ongoing process. The building of the temple is an independent thing. It's part of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Part of going out of the Galus from Babel is the building of the second temple. It's not the first part. They built the walls around Yerushalayim first. They did other things as well. they return to the land first. It's not the first and only step in the process. Let me rephrase that. As many people believe that Mashiach appears, the third temple descends from heaven, and that's it. That is all that is involved in redemption. Everything that we've seen throughout the entire time we've been learning is showing that Geula, first of all, is a process, not turning on and off a light switch. And we see that the apex of the process is the building of the temple. That's what we are going toward, but it's not independent and separated from the rest of these things. Thus far, we have been looking at the Rishonim, and now we will look at the Achronim, the later authorities. We are only going to look at two of the Achronim, although we could spend a lot more time on this. It would become very, very repetitious. We will look at some of the commentaries of the Malbim on Tanakh, and we will look at a few statements of Rav Kook. On the pasuk from Yeshayahu, Perek Yud Beis, pasuk Beis, source 1, and Rayot Min Achronim, Hinei El Yeshuati Eftach V'lo Avchad Ki Ozi B'Zimratika Hashem Vayhi Li Lishua. Pasuk that most of us are familiar with from Havdalah. Behold, God is my salvation. I trust and I am not afraid that He is my power, and my songs to God, and my song is to God. God will be with me to save me. So the Malbim there says, when he looks at this pasuk, Eftach v'lo efchad, I will trust in Him, I will not be afraid. Shivtechu shelo yavo od begalut, I will not come again into exile. V'shtiyeh hatshua shuat olamim, and that the salvation that is coming is an eternal salvation. Again, on Yeshayahu, Perek Lamed Hey, pasuk Yud, this pasuk says, source 3, V'duye Hashem yashuvun uvao Tzion Barina, v'yismechu olam al rosham, v'simchat olam al rosham, and the ones that are redeemed by God will return, and they will come to Zion in song, and there will be an eternal rejoicing on their head. Sason v'simcha yasigu, happiness and rejoicing will catch up with them. V'nas yagon v'anacha, and sighs and woes will flee. The Malbim says on this pasuk, source 4, Shitra'eh al rosham simchat nitzchit, and it will be seen upon their heads an eternal happiness. Shelo ye'ach reha tuga v'galut klal. After it, there will be no pain in exile at all. Lo kamosh simchat bait sheni, not like the rejoicing of the second temple. Shelo haytah simchat olam, that didn't have a eternal happiness. And again, the Malbim on the pasuk in Amos, pasuk Tet, Perek Tet, pasuk Tet Vav, Netatem al admatam, and I will plant you. Netiyah is to take a sapling and put it in the ground. V'lo yinatshu od me'al admatam, and they will not again abandon their land. Asher netati lehem, that I have given to you, Amar Hashem Elokayich, says the Lord your God. The truth is that this prophecy itself says, V'lo yintashu od me'al admatam, you will never be again abandon the land. Nonetheless, we will look at the Malbim on this pasuk 6. Netatem al admatam, and you will be planted on your land. Me'az yeh ke'etz hanetua bimkomo. From then on, you will be like a tree that is planted in its place. She'efshar le'okro ma'admato. You cannot uproot it from its land. Ken lo yinatshu od me'al admatam. Thus, you will not again be uprooted from your land. Ki lo yelchu od begalut le'olam. You will never go into exile again. And the Malbim again writes on Chavakuk, Pasuk Beit, Perik Beit, Pasuk Gimel, Ki Od Chazon L'Moed. Again, it is the vision of the time. V'ipach l'kates v'lo yichazev. The time is ripened; it will not lie. Im yitmameya chakelo. If it is delayed, he waits for it. Ki bo yavo lo yacher. It will surely come; it will not be late. The Malbim on this pasuk says, Ki achrei shigalu Yisrael mi Babel. After Israel was redeemed from Babel, Higalu Sheni, they were exiled the second time. V'akates, and the end, Shia Gula Achrona, which is the last redemption, Lo Ye'az, will not be then. Ki Od Yiglu Sheni, because they will be exiled the second time. Aval Hakates Lo Yikazev, but the true end will not lie. Ki Lo Ye'achrecha Galut, there will be no other exile after it. Rak Ye'chuat Olamit. It will simply be an eternal salvation. And in Tzfanya, Perik Gimel, Pasuk Chet, source 10 is the Pasuk from Tzfanya. L'chu chikuli, l'chen chikuli, therefore wait for me. Num Hashem affirms God. L'yom kumi la'ad, ki mishpati la'sof goyim l'kavtzei mamlachot, because I will get up for my judgment to gather the nations, meaning the 12 tribes, from the ends of the dominions. Lishvoch alehem zami, to pour upon them my fury. Kol charon api, all of my anger. Ki be'ish kinati tochal kol aretz, because in my great anger I will eat up the land. So the Malbim says on this pasuk, source 11, Ki iyavshar shani achake lechem, it is impossible that I will wait for them. Rotze lomer, that is to say, shekaveh ve'amtin shetem tivu maseichem, I will wait until you improve your deeds. V'al zeh tosh o, and through this you will be saved. Rak atem tzrichim lachakot li, but you have to wait for me. Rotze lomer, what does this mean to say? Lamtin ad shiavo ha'et miu'ad be'achrit hayimim. You have to wait for the set time at the end of days. Sha'az et orer ani el hagula ha'atida, because then I will wake up for the future redemption. Kashiyagia ha'ketz acharon ha'mugbal, when the set time for the final redemption is. Habilti talui b'maseichem klal, it is not dependent upon your deeds at all. V'al zayamar, and on this it says liyom umi, on the day that I get up. Shaz akum ani me'atzmi, then lagu lachem, because then I will get up on my own to redeem you. And this will be eternal. Rotzelomer, that is to say, Sha'az tiye geula nitzchit la'ad, then it will be an eternal redemption forever. Shelo yeh acharav galut od, that there will never be another redemption again. This is, if you think about it, the redemption, I mentioned this in our last year, redemption is dependent upon our deeds. When the people cease being such great tzaddikim, that can negate the redemption and lead to another exile. Whereas if the exile is completely and totally dependent upon God, then at that point God does not regret his actions. And therefore, this redemption has to be eternal. Now, if we look at the writings of Rav Kook and Oro Techiyah, the lights of resurrection, Rav Kook writes, Mamin hu ha'am kulo, the nation entirely believes, she'en galut od achrei ha'gula, ha'holechet u'mitchelet lefanenu, that there will be no other exile after the redemption that is growing and developing before us. In the vision of the redemption. When he talks in an essay called Halacha L'Maaseh, pages 10 to 34, it's also found in Mamrei Hariyah, pages 537 to 524. The Rav Kook relates to the length of the redemption. A number of questions that are asked about dwelling in Eretz Yisrael, and he brings many psukim around this concept, and we will give only a few sentences of what he says there. If someone wants to look at it in depth, they can. And the Rav writes, V'lo yomru od chai Hashem asher hela et bnei Yisrael mi'eretz Mitzrayim, and they will not say again, the God that brought up bnei Yisrael from the land of Egypt is alive. Ki im chai Hashem asher hela ve'asher hevi et zera beit Yisrael mi'eretz Tzifona u'mikol harot asher hidachtim sham ve'ashuvu al admatam. But God is alive that brought them up, the seed of the house of Israel, from the land of the north and from all of the lands that I scattered them and returned them to their land. That's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, Perek Chaf Gimel, Psukim Zayin and Chet, the Sham, and there it says, Amar al Kibbutz HaOlim. It says about the ingathering of the exiles. V'samti ni aleihem l'tova. I put my eye upon them for good. V'hashivotim el haaretz hazot. And I returned them to this land. V'benitem v'lo ehares nitatim v'lo etosh. I have built them, I will not destroy. I have planted them, I will not uproot. The Rav Kook views in the connection between these psukim, how we see the redemption. When it says ve'ashuvu al admatam, that they will return to their land, tieh nitzchi, this is eternal, and that's why he brings the other pasuk. It's actually the previous pasuk. It's the next parak. Uvanitim v'lo eharos, and I will build it, and I will not destroy. In this chapter, the last two lessons, we have clarified that it is not possible, according to our traditions, that there will be a third destruction. And we've brought the sources from the Talmud, the Midrashim, the Rishonim, the Achronim, and all of them are based in the basic psukim of Nevuah concerning the nature of the redemption. And now it's truly possible to understand what Rav Herzog said when he said, Mekublanu shiyu rak shnei churbanot, churban shlishi lo yeh. We have received that there will only be two destructions. A third destruction will not happen. And then he returned to Eretz Yisrael. Even though at the time, right, everyone was telling him it was dangerous. Even though at the time it was before the Battle of El Alamein, the Nazis, Yimach Shemam, had yet to feel a defeat. And the Allies, their flag of victory was Dunkirk, a successful retreat across the water. That's not exactly how you win a war. Nonetheless, Rav Kook was absolutely certain, because of what we have learned, our traditions, our knowledge of what the third redemption means, that at that point in time, since the redemption had begun, it could not be interrupted, it could not be stopped, there could be difficulties in it, but it would continue to go on, and therefore the Yishuv in Eretz Yisrael could not be destroyed and was not inherently in danger.